Yes, so born in Portsmouth, Virginia. My mother was from Virginia. My father and his side of the family from New Orleans, Louisiana. So with both of those combined together, I grew up eating a lot of Southern foods. There was gumbo, there was chitlins, there was pork rinds, there was pig feet. There was also a lot of spiritual essence that happened that I didn't realize until I got older, like my great grandma having an altar, us going to an African church where they would come and bless the home with the smoke and, do the symbols on the, some people might call it witchcraft, but do the symbols on the baseboards of protection. So that's the background that I remember growing up in. And then in the south, in my Portsmouth, Virginia side of the family, my mother's side, we were my grandmother and my mother were like serial entrepreneurs of the hood. So my grandma was one of the first Black women in Portsmouth that had like, a casino, a small casino in Portsmouth, and she did catering and offered a lot of services to the community. So those things instilled in me, hence where I am today. And I instill that into my daughters. And that's what I grew up in knowing. And then I can't wait to share what happened after I found out where the bloodline began.
I love it. I love it. How about you, Melanie? Can you tell us a little bit more about your history?
Okay, yeah. I think when I had my first child is when I began that exploration into where did I come from. I was fortunate to know my great great grandmother. We actually shared the same birthday, and she lived to 103 years old. So by knowing her name, that kind of helped me get as far back. But unfortunately, her parents died, and they all were in Arkansas, mostly the northwestern part of Arkansas, and my family, my great grandfather and great grandmother, they bought property in rural areas and grew up in a small Black community called Union Chapel in Arkansas. On my father's side, I remember going to family reunions, and their particular family I know came through Louisiana, and there was a preacher somewhere in there, and from doing like ancestry.com, I think I was able to trace my great great grandfather back to Nova Scotia. And so that particular part of my family, I believe I need to do a little bit more research, but apparently they could have been runaway slaves or a slave community that left the USA, but then migrated back to southeast Arkansas because German settlers were giving land to ex-slaves. So that's the only little piece of history. But I want to say I have a cousin who's done a little bit of research, and she may have some connection with West Africa, is where her research is found. So again, there's a lot of missing pieces. I've spent a little bit of time on the continent where I have seen the various traditions and even just how God has shown up in it and has carried himself with us and living in us as we have settled here in the USA, not by choice, but by force. And so it is beautiful to see how our stories and how spirituality has played such a key role as in the life of African Americans. So it's beautiful, and I'm glad that I get to continue this journey.